dramatic, bold leaves, towering above you against a brilliant blue sky. Exotic tropical colours of huge foliage. Hi everyone, welcome back to Tropical Glos. And now I'm not describing my latest holiday video, but rather what you can grow in the UK in your tropical garden. So in this video what we're going to look at is hints and tips to get you the biggest possible plants in the quickest amount of time and growing them healthy for years to come. So stick around and let's have a look at some enormous plants. So I'm making this video in sections because the weather, being autumn, is really interchangeable at the moment. So I'm dodging rain showers. So we're going to just look around the garden and see what plants need what care, what position, etc. just to make them grow really well. So we're going to start off with this Insete. Insete is not really a banana, although people call it banana. And this is a staple food crop in places around the world. So this plant really likes warm weather, lots of water and lots of feed. So what kind of food do they like? Well, they love high nitrogen. Anything with lots of nitrogen in, they will lap it up. They also need to grow good strong roots. So I use something called Vitax 6X, which has all of these. It's a slow release. I'm not sponsored by them in any way, but it works really well, and I apply it sort of once every 4 weeks, once every 6 weeks to help it grow. So they do like lots and lots of water. The more water you can give them, the better. And they like the soil to be nutrient rich and also well draining as well. So you can plant these out after the last frosts have gone in a sunny location and feed them well throughout the growing periods. Then when it comes to this time of year, we start thinking about what we're going to do and how are we going to treat them in winter. So these plants are not hardy, and I'll explain why. They are full of water, and what do we get in the winter? We get freezing temperatures. So if you leave something out that's full of water in freezing temperatures, what's going to happen? Well, it's going to freeze, isn't it? What that does is it causes cell damage within the plant and they die. So I also want to give you some tips of how to look after them in winter. I'm not going to go too much in depth with this because I'm going to do them as I get plants ready for winter. We'll do videos on them then. But basically this one needs to be dry stored over winter. It's not hardy in the UK, despite what some people say. Only in the very, very warmest of locations, wrapped under eaves, staying dry, and with a lot of luck they might survive outside, but they're just easy enough to start in spring. So basically you dig them up, cut all the leaves off, cut all the roots off, and once you've done that you turn it upside down and let it drain, because these, as I said, are full of water. Once they've drained, what I tend to do, and there's various different methods, but I tend to put them in a bucket of dryish compost. Just leave them standing there and put them in the heated greenhouse over winter. Then when spring comes, off we go again. So I treat bananas in the same way in spring and summer and autumn as I do the Insete. I've done some videos on Musa Bazdu, so please check those out. So I'm not going to go into too much detail here. Musa Bazdu can grow exceptionally tall. They have these enormous green leaves which rip in the wind. So once they reach a certain height, you might get a pristine leaf for a week or so, but as soon as the winds come, they shred. So if you don't mind that shredded look, they do look awesome. The planting profile is exactly the same as the Insete. So sunny location. It also requires lots of water, and they also require good amount of high nitrogen feed, so the food is exactly the same. So the major difference between Musa Bazdu and Insete is the hardiness. Musabasdew are more hardy than Ensetes, so the roots are hardy down to around about -12. The pseudostem isn't, so if you want to protect the height, and I've mentioned this in previous videos, then we need to wrap them up ready for winter. There's some traditional ways which involve canes, chicken wire, straw. I tend to use recycled loft insulation, so made of recycled plastic. I just wrap them up. It's good enough to keep them protected over winter and retain the height. And then once the threat of frosts have gone, or the very worst of winter has disappeared, then we can unwrap them and let those leaves come out. Other huge tropicals are things like this canna. This is Russian red. But I also grow these very large canna musifolia, which can grow up to 3 meters plus, and if I'm lucky I will get them to flower. Various smaller varieties like Canna Thai Smoky Flame, Canna Cleopatra. Now they all produce these beautiful leaves and stems which do create a really exotic tropical backdrop to your garden. And we treat and feed these in summer and spring the same way we do the Ensetes and the Musabasdews we've just previously talked about. So this Canna musifolia behind me, what I tend to do with this clump is I do leave it in the ground and it comes back each spring. But you can, and I very much do with other plants, is lift them and divide them, which will bring you lots and lots of new plants in spring. If you are going to leave them in the ground over winter, what I suggest you do is you mulch them heavily. The reason that I left a lot of them is because it does give you a head start when growing these plants in spring, because the extra heat that you get in a heated greenhouse or just a conservatory or a cold frame just gives you that little bit of acceleration of growth. So Colocasias, specifically in this case pink chinas, to be honest, there's not a lot you need to do with these. I do feed them, but not as often as I do the Ensete and as the bananas. And I do make sure they get absolutely loads of water, because that's what makes them grow. So in winter what I tend to do is give them a really good mulch of manure. It just protects them. But to be honest with you, they are very, very hardy. So even without a mulch in my location, they will come back year after year after year. And they are such awesome spreaders. I started off with 3 plants and I have huge clumps everywhere in this garden of Colocasia pink china. The more tender varieties like the black sapphire gecko and the other Colocasias which are a little bit more tender, I lift these, and again I store them, pretty much dry store them as much as possible depending on the size of the corm. Some I keep going in a heated propagator, but it does depend again on the corm size. So in this section of the garden I have 3 plants which require very little maintenance at all. This first one is Aurelia alata, which we looked at. It's a very fast growing tree, and to be honest, I don't do anything with it. If you don't water it, it grows. If you water it, it grows. If you feed it, it grows. If you don't, it grows. It's just a really impressive tree. It's deciduous, so you'll be left with this very spiky trunk during winter, but that's about it. And then we have this very fast growing tree. And if you look back at some of my previous videos, the one that was called Fast Growing Exotics, this was about yay high. It's now right up there. So exceptionally fast growing, again deciduous, and again don't really need to do anything. It does like food to help it with growth, and it does like water, but it's deciduous, and in winter you'll just be left with a stem. Now if you want to, you can what they call pollard or coppice it, which is cut the stem at a certain height, but this one is only just 2 years old, so I'm not going to do that yet. Normally in the 3rd year, that's when you do that. And then the Tetrapanax. Now this one is not looking as high as it did, because the big thing in the middle is a flower bud, which has pushed all the leaves down as that grows up. But again, don't really have to do a lot. It does like good food, so high nitrogen, that Vitac 6X I use, I feed this all the time with it. It's deciduous, so in winters it'll lose its leaves. And if you want to protect the height, you can give some kind of overhead protection. It doesn't like to be wrapped. It doesn't like to be enclosed. It likes to have air running through it. So you can give an overhead protection. It just gives it a little bit of protection if you want to protect the height, but also if you want to protect things like the flowers, which will turn into berries and eventually seed. And then the final group of plants I want to talk about are annuals, such as ricinus, solanums, anything you grow for one season. The name says it really. You don't really need to do anything in winter because they're annual. So once you've planted them in spring, they reach terrific heights and look exceptionally impressive. Once winter comes, the frost will kill them off. You can grow them from seed next year and start all over again.